Cat Williams and our Unity Band. How many of you were able to make it out to our concert the other night? Wasn't that awesome? We are so blessed with wonderful music every Sunday. We welcome Dave, Richard, Joel, and Robert, and Kat. Would you show them our love and appreciation this morning? Thank you. Welcome to you. Merry Christmas. It's truly that time of year. We are so blessed. There's an insert in your bulletin. Many of you purchased one of these poinsettias to be in honor and memory and celebration of someone, and you'll be taking these home after the services on December 22nd. But thank you for decorating the place so beautifully. To each of you that have helped with the decorations, would you give them a hand? They're absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. We always begin our services in unity just remembering that we come from many different walks of life, many different spiritual and religious traditions, but what brings us here is love. And the recognition that there is the divinity, the divine, is inherent within all creation, all beings and all creation. The way we've been engaging that this year is right here. Would you please join me? We are radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, and socially responsive. So with that, I invite you to join in an opening prayer. As we turn our awareness within this morning, we do so in that spirit of peace. Today we talk about peace, but through the context of what we magnify in our life. We look at the life of Mary, the meaning, the mystical meaning, and how it applies to each and every one of us. We realize that peace does not depend on conditions. It's a condition in and of itself. It's a state of being. And once we are in that state of being, wherever we are, there is peace. And so we open today to understand the inner dimensions of our being, how we embody these things, and then wherever we are, all that we embody is right there, present and available. We give thanks for this season, for this day, that we may be a blessing and know that we are truly blessed. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. I invite you to stand and join as you're able as we open with a Christmas song that says, "Angels we have heard on high." Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Have your breath, you can turn and greet those around you with a welcoming handshake or a holy hug. Welcome this morning. sound beautiful. Thank you. You may be seated. And once again, we're so blessed with this amazing band. Dave, Richard, Joel, Robert, Pete, our normal. He's not very normal, but Pete, our regular. None of us are. Had hip replacement surgery, but many of you probably remember Robert George, who played congas with us a while, is here, and Kat. So we're so blessed to have this amazing, amazing band. This is the time in the service where we get to acknowledge our young people. We have a Sunday school program, a youth program. We have a program with from nursery to Unitots on up. And so our youth teachers, as they're heading over, any of our children or youth that are in the chapel, if you want to head on over, we're going to bless them and bless those that are already in the back. And so we rub our hands together with that intention of love and knowing the truth of who they are. And to each of them, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. Have a wonderful Sunday school experience this morning. Thank you all for being here. We would also like to extend a special welcome to any of you that may be here for the first time or the first time in a long time, perhaps. If you raise your hand, our welcoming team will extend a connections card to you. Just hold your hand up. It looks like we're all family and friends here. Oh, no, we have a new person over here. And if we're and there's some over here. If you hold your hands up, our Unity folks lovingly point to those. We have a welcome booth. You can drop these off in the foyer or pick one up or get a welcome packet. It's where if you have a question or a suggestion, we invite you to stop by there and let us know. But there's a heart. If you attach that heart to your name tag or just your clothing, it will allow us to more easily recognize you as someone who is new to Unity today, and we can extend that special welcome. But for each of you, and we take a moment to turn and wave at our live stream, those who couldn't be here or those who will watch us sometime later, we welcome all of those streaming with us. And to each and every one of you, whether it's your first time or this is your spiritual home, whether you're joining us here or from afar, let us affirm and bless each other, that truth that says, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the divinity in you. We want to thank you for being here. Reverend Christy Corna, who's at the heart of this ministry, is going to share some announcements with us. Would you please welcome Reverend Christy? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. If you haven't done so already, if you could please silence your cell phones. If you can put them on airplane mode or completely turn them off, that would be really great. That helps us out during the service. We have our Christmas Angel program continuing. Two representatives from ABCCM in Buncombe County will be with us next Sunday. The gifts are due back next Sunday, and once we send a blessing upon those gifts, we will ask for a couple of volunteers after the second service to help load up the gifts so they can go off on their little sleigh and support all the families in the community. As you can see, it's just so beautifully full up here. When you bring back the gifts, if it doesn't appear to be room, you can also put them out on the table in the lobby, and we'll get everything in here for that special blessing. Also, Unity of the Blue Ridge is a board-governed organization, and our annual meeting will be happening in February, and there will be 2 vacancies on our Board of Trustees. And if you are an active and engaged member in this community and have thought about different ways to serve, if you feel so moved to find out more information about serving as a board member on our Board of Trustees, there are packets of information available to you. You can see me following today's service, and I'll be happy to give that information to you and see if that's a call to your soul. Also want to invite you, your families, your friends to join us for our Christmas Eve candlelight service. That's at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, December 24th. Absolutely delightful time, holiday music, beautiful story of Christmas, and of course all of us sharing our Christ light. So join us for that. And then on Friday the 27th at 6:30, Reverend Deborah Ogist is going to lead a Kwanzaa service. So if you'd like to learn more about that and participate in that culture of sharing light and really taking on values that serve the greater community as well as ourselves, it's a wonderful experience. Also want to let you know that our Feed the Kids program We will be preparing a meal here on December 27th. So they're putting the call out now. If you would like to participate, we prepare food here in our kitchen, and then we have people to transport it over to the Boys and Girls Club in Hendersonville, and then we also need servers at the Boys and Girls Club. If you want more information on that, please see me following today's service. And one more thing. The bookstore today, 75% off. Please take a look. The inventory is, it's getting smaller, but there's still wonderful opportunities to pick up some holiday gifts at 75% off. And with that, we are aware. I'd like to invite Reverend Elon Lambert up, and Reverend Elon comes to us from Salem, Oregon, and we are so blessed to have her in service to this community. And she's going to share our inspirational reading, and as she does so, I am going to light our Advent candles. Last week we opened to hope, and this week I will light the candle for peace.
Good morning. I have the wonderful honor of being the Sacred Service Ministry Director, and that's all of the volunteers, and we would like to, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the PowerPoint team. Yay. And I want to let you know that we have 2 openings, basically, for the PowerPoint team. And so my invitation to you is to perhaps maybe sit back there, if you're interested, sit back in the booth with them and see what it is that they do. We know that sacred divinity within each one of us, the way that acts out in the world is through our eyes and ears and all the wonderful ways that we can serve others. And so if you're moved to serve this wonderful Unity of the Blue Ridge, and I invite you to see me after service. So today's word is peace. Embodying the peace of God, I create a peaceful world. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. I know peace as I hear the first words of this beloved Christmas carol. The peace I feel wells up from the depths of my being, from a place of silence filled only with awareness of God. The peace of God refreshes and restores me each time I visit this inner sanctuary, replacing anything unlike itself. My consciousness remains calm and bright as I return to the many activities of the day. As I embody peace, stress and tension transform into productive energy. Peace shows me there are possibilities for good in every situation and every relationship. Thoughts of peace, words of peace, and peaceful actions fill my day. I embody peace to help create a peaceful world. Those of steadfast mind you keep in peace because they trust in you. Isaiah 26:3.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest part of love, to the sweetest part of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to this present moment, here to this new I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the steepest part of love, to the sweetest part of life. Get ready, my soul. And here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. And here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper to my sacred source. And here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. And here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest part of love, to the sweetest part of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul. Yeah.
Wow, if there ever was a Christmas song, that's a Christmas song. Get ready, my soul, I'm diving in. Would you show your appreciation again, Kat and our band? That was beautiful. Thank you. I absolutely love this season, and I as many years as I've been in ministry and spoken about these things at Christmas, I never tire of it, because Christmas is the season for something to be rebirthed in our awareness, and that's truly what we talk about today. And so I want to begin with a question that we'll be exploring, and that is, what are you magnifying in your life? What are your attitudes lately magnifying? What would you say your thoughts are magnifying? And are there values or things that you embody that, do you realize you're magnifying those things? And are they the things that you would like to magnify? Because if you really stop and think about it, our whole life is magnifying something. And so what is it that we are magnifying? One of my favorite gifts as a kid, one Christmas, I got a chemistry set. I was a geek, in case you couldn't have guessed that, a girl geek. That went over. and I loved this chemistry set, and two of my favorite things in it were a magnifying glass and a microscope. And that microscope opened up a whole nother world, because I could take a drop of water or a blade of grass or a piece of hair, anything, and look at it under that microscope. And it opened up a whole new world. There were things there were detail and things there that were always there, but I couldn't see them with the naked eye. And that's the thing about magnification is, when you magnify something, you don't make that bigger, but it changes your perception. It changes the level of intimacy you have with it. It changes your understanding of it, your relationship with it. And so that's what we talk about today when we look at the Christmas story. In unity, when we look at, anytime we're looking at the Bible, in particular, and Unity looks at the Bible and many other sacred texts. But in the Bible essentially is a story of Adam consciousness, a consciousness of Adam and Eve, the individual that is outside of communion with the creative presence. It's that Adam consciousness is one who knows themselves as separate and apart. All the way to the journey to Christ consciousness is atonement, at-one-ment, the one who knows they are one with the one with all that is. And so in Unity, when we look at the Bible, we're looking at it in its mystical or metaphysical sense and understanding that it's about a journey of the soul. And there's great value to be found if you look at these stories and the characters and ask yourself, how does that apply to me? And so that's how we approach the Christmas story. And today we're going to look at Mary. Because growing up, you may have been like me, I heard one Christmas story and I thought that that was it. It must be exactly like that in the Bible. Well, as I got older, I realized there's one version in the Gospel of Luke, there's another gospel version in the Gospel of Matthew, and they don't really match. But so what we do is we kind of smash them together and throw in a partridge and a pear tree and a little drummer boy and call it the Christmas story. So we kind of make some stuff up here. But to set the stage, I want to read the one that comes from the Gospel of Luke. And every writer, groups of writers, it was really an audience. They were writing to a particular audience and wanting to make a particular point. But again, I'll read it and then we'll break it out and see what is it mystically, what does this mean for us, and what is the Mary inside of me? And to begin, I love a quote by Meister Eckhart. He was a German mystic born in the early 1200s. And he said this beautifully. He said, "What good is it to me that Mary gave birth to the Son of God 1,400 years ago, and I do not also give birth to the Son of God in my time and in my culture? We are all meant to be mothers of God. God is always needing to be born." Such wisdom that he brought forth, it kind of sets the stage. So from the Gospel of Luke, it says, "In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. The angel came to her and said, 'Greetings, favored one, thou art blessed, the Lord is with you.' But Mary was afraid, perplexed by his words, and pondered what sort of greeting this would be. The angel said to her, 'Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus, and he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High.' But Mary said to the angel, 'But how can this be, since I am a virgin?' The angel said to her, 'The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore the child to be born will be holy. He will be called the Son of God. Even now, your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has also conceived a son. She's 6 months pregnant, and yet it was said that she was barren. But you see, nothing is impossible with God.' And then Mary said, 'Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word.' Then the angel departed from her." And then a few more verses down, it comes back, and this is after it sank in, I guess, to Mary. And she says, "My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God." And so that's the point we want to get to, is what does it really mean when we say my soul magnifies the Lord, or the law, or love? What does it mean for our soul to magnify that and for our spirit and our soul to rejoice? Well, Mary represents that part of us that has to make space for a new idea, for the truth of our being to take root and be born. There's another a story in the Gospels with two sisters, another Mary and Martha. You may remember the story. Martha was the one always busy. Mary was the one that made space, made room. Mary is that part of us that knows how to make space in our awareness and knows how to nurture and bring to life our potential. And that's what we're going to look at. And some of the things, there's 4 things in particular that I want to talk about a few minutes today. 4 things in particular that Mary, looking at the life of Mary, would have us ask, what am I magnifying? And the first one is, when the angel comes to Mary and says, You are blessed. You are favored. God has something special for you. You are appointed to do something. What the angel told Mary is the truth for all of us. The first thing that we really need to magnify is the truth of our being. Now, in order to do this, we need to understand a little bit about, if you look at the story, at this particular time in Palestine, what would a life have been like for a young woman, or actually a girl, very much like Mary? Typically in that particular time, a girl, by the time she was 12 or 13 years old, she would be engaged. As soon as she was able to bear children, she would immediately become engaged, and typically would be married. The marriage would take place within a year after the engagement. Now, the reason for that is because the job of women in that time was one thing: it was to bear children. And so the reason for the youthfulness, is to maximize childbearing. So Mary would have probably been 12, 13 years old when this happened. We also told that she was from Nazareth, and interestingly enough, in John 1:46, it says there was someone called to be a disciple, and they heard that Jesus was from Nazareth, and they said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" So it tells us that she was from Nazareth, and why would they have said that? Well, Nazareth is where the peasant class lived. 90% of the people, the Hebrew people, were the peasant class, the poor, hard-working folks. Many of them lived in Nazareth, and it was the poor people that was paying the way for the government, and the other 10%. So she came from that 90%, the poor class. We also can assume that she didn't read. She was illiterate, because very few people could read or write, and it was almost impossible for a girl or a woman to be able to read and write. So now you can sort of understand, when you have this young person who's engaged, she certainly was familiar with the culture of her time, the religious culture. That was her life. Mary would have had a very narrow, defined life of possibility. Her life was going to look like this because every other woman she knew, their life looked like that. And so when you think that your life is going to look like this, and then an angel, somehow or another, this divine message comes to you and says, "You are special. You are appointed to bring something to bring God to life. You are blessed of God." You can imagine why that shook her up and why that startled her. But that's the first thing. It's the foundation for all of us, is, do you know yourself? Do you know that you too are special? Not special compared to anyone else, but special meaning that God doesn't create anything that's not special. Have you ever seen a bumblebee that wasn't special? Or a butterfly that wasn't special? Have you ever seen an iris or a tulip? These things are beautiful. Have you ever seen a chihuahua that wasn't special? Have you ever seen a cat that wasn't special? That all of creation knows it's beautiful and brilliant and meant to bring something to life. And the first thing about the Mary story is saying, are you magnifying some small story about yourself, or are you magnifying the spiritual truth of who you are? You see, does anybody else tend to magnify your flaws, your shortcomings, your faults? Does anybody else magnify the faults, the flaws, the shortcomings of those you love, of those we see on TV, of those we see in the media? That it's so easy to magnify those things. And I'm not suggesting that we dismiss or ignore things that need to be changed. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that we have things in right perspective, that we need to first and foremost magnify our own divinity. My partner and I got hooked on this Netflix show called The Crown. I don't know if anyone has seen that. And I recently saw an episode that was very moving to me. It was about Winston Churchill, and it's based on the fact in this particular time, Winston Churchill is just turning 80 years old, and people around him are wanting him to step down because he's just having a hard time doing the job that he had once done. And so the government, they gift him, that this famous painter comes in and paints this beautiful portrait of Churchill. It's just gigantic, and the people at the time said it was a masterpiece, an incredible work of art. But when they unveiled it and when Winston Churchill saw it, he was so angry because it actually looked like him. All the while, he wanted it to portray the image he had of himself. But the artist did a brilliant job of really capturing his personality and capturing that bulldog look and capturing all the things about Winston Churchill. And he could not stand it. He hated that painting because it reflected back to him. He didn't want to see who he really was. And it was after that painting, it really shook him to the core. He finally decided to step down. He said, if people see the real me, I'm going to step down. And he did. And as soon as he stepped down, the first thing he did, he took that giant painting out into his yard and gathered up some sticks, and he set it on fire. And the thing that really struck me about that is, you know what? If we don't have a vision of our spiritual self, it gets really hard to live with your human frailty. Amen? That we all age. Does anybody have all your body parts in the original starting place? I mean, it's like we all age and things happen and life changes us. And so what Mary is asking us to make room and magnify your true nature, that you are first and foremost a spiritual being, that you are a beautiful, perfect spiritual being expressing in human form, and the humanness of you is not a bad part of you. The humanness of you is the beautiful way that you express and embody that spirit. So the first thing is just that, is to be able to make room and to magnify our I am. The second thing then that we magnify is our potentiality, what we could call our divine potentiality. That all of us are created to bring forth more of our potential. And the way that you do that is through experience. You may have an idea, you may have insight, you may have intuition, you may have inspiration. All of these things are great. And you can have an aha moment and a knowing. Maybe all of a sudden it dawns on you that peace is possible. But is it really possible until you get out and get in some kind of chaotic environment and can still stand there and bear witness to peace? And so it's about embodying it and bringing all of these things that are potential to life. A great teacher in unity on our potential as divine beings was Eric Butterworth. Eric Butterworth was a masterful speaker, teacher, writer. He made his transition in 2003. But from 1961 until 2003, he was a minister in New York City. He filled up Carnegie Hall. He filled up Avery Fisher Hall, typically over 2,000 people on a Sunday. He was such a powerful speaker that really understood our divine potential. But he had to grow in that understanding. And he attributes his greatest lesson to a time when, as a young man, he felt very called to go to the ministry, and in particular Unity, New Thought. So he made his way to Kansas City and started taking classes, but this was during World War II. And he got his letter, his draft notice. He was drafted. And when he was drafted to go to war in World War II, he really struggled with it. Eric often talked about the fact that he does not believe in war. He believed in peace. He didn't believe in fighting. He believed in peace. But he also believed in his country, and he understood that people are serving our country, and he felt compelled to do this. So he had a real conflict of a crisis of consciousness, I guess you would say. So what he did, he talked to a person there at the school asking for advice, and they said, well, it's really up to you. But they said, just so you know, you are eligible for a 4D because you're in ministry school. You can opt out. You don't have to serve. But he said as he prayed, he just felt like he didn't have his answer yet. So on his next break, he went back to Colorado, up to the Rocky Mountains, and he said he climbed up on this hill. He said, I need a higher perspective. I really need an answer. I want to know what to do here. And while he was in prayer and meditation, he said it became very clear to him that he was to go and to serve. And that's what he did. And he had a little journal he was writing, and he said he literally heard the words that says, God's law of adjustment regulates all the affairs of my life, and all things are in divine order. And it was one of the first times he had heard such a clear word of God that he held on to. He did go ahead into the Army. He served as a lieutenant in the medical corps. He served for a number of years. And during that time, he worked with people as a chaplain. He worked with people counseling. He wound up doing what he often referred back to as some of the greatest and most rewarding work in his life. And he said what he realized was that when life calls you on your battlefield, when life calls you out of your comfort zone, sometimes you don't understand why, but if you pay attention, you're always there to bring something else to life. That he uncovered skills and abilities that he never even knew he had and would not have ever known he had he not been in that situation, in that circumstance. So it's a very powerful thing when we ask ourselves, are we magnifying our problems, or are we magnifying divine potential? Are we magnifying the potentiality that exists within you and within me? Are we magnifying the potentiality that exists in any given moment, at any point in time? That there's always, all you need usually is an idea. If I just had a divine idea, I'd know what my next step is. So we magnify our spiritual nature, and then we begin to magnify our potential. After that experience, Eric Butterworth wrote, "Life's inmost secret is the divine pattern in you, which you can only really know when you are giving yourself in service." He said, so go within a time of silence and get a renewed awareness of who you are, of the potentiality of God in you, of the perfect life that is in you. That's how we magnify our potential. So we magnify our spiritual nature. We magnify our potentiality. The third thing that's really important is to magnify your consent. Mary said out loud, "As you have said unto me, so let it be." The angel came to her, as the story goes. She's told this thing, but it was very important and essential for her to be in agreement with it, to be in agreement with spiritual law, to be in agreement with the truth of her being. The question then becomes for us, what are the things how are we focusing and giving our consent to things that we really don't believe in? Where are our actions in agreement and magnifying something that we really don't want to be any part of? You know, those are questions that can be really hard to digest sometimes, but it's the hard work we need to be willing to do. The other thing that Mary teaches us about this, about being in consent with this, how many of you have physically given birth to a child? Was there any labor involved? I was trained to be a spiritual coach under Maria Nemeth, and I love her work. And one of the phrases that she learned, and one of the things I learned, is to talk about things happening with clarity and focus and ease and grace. And I've prayed a lot about, let this happen with clarity and focus and ease and grace. And one day my spirit said, Darlene, clarity and focus, but it's clarity and focus, but it's grace and growth. That life is not always easy. Amen? And sometimes on the spiritual path, and I've met a lot of people that have said, well, you know, I really thought I was supposed to do this, but then I hit a hiccup, so I guess it's not God's will. And I'm like, you hit a hiccup? And you think it's not God's will? Mary, you know, you give birth to something, there's stretch marks involved. It's going to stretch you. There's going to be some pains of labor. It does not necessarily mean that you're not doing the right thing. It means you're being stretched and grown so that something new can come forth. And so it's to realize that there's a clarity and a focus and a grace, but growth is not always pretty. Growth is sometimes messy, so don't be afraid of that. And to know that when you consent to the spiritual path, there'll be some work to do. But there's joy and peace and love in that work if you're doing what's yours to do. Amen? Does that make sense? So we're focusing on our I am, our spiritual nature. We're focusing on our potentiality and not our problems. We're focusing on where are we giving our consent. And then finally, what we focus on is beginning to work with what we have, focusing on working with what we have and taking the steps that we can take. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it beautifully when he said, you don't have to see the whole staircase to take your next step. That sometimes we don't want to get started until we know exactly where we're going to end up. Life doesn't usually work like that. Richard, would you give me the song? When I thought about this last one, I really had a time in my life that what we focus on, what we magnify, and how Mary in us is making space was a real teaching in my life. I'm always learning. But when I was called to serve on Maui, they say you don't live on a volcano if you're not up for some high change. And so I was so delighted to serve on Maui, and I worked with the church there, and I was there as a minister in transition, so not knowing exactly how long that I would be there. And so the time came, I was always in prayer about, it's a delicate balance of getting a church to a certain place, and then you have to step out so they don't get attached to you, and you get ready they can be ready for the next one, and that's the job I was to do there. Let me be clear, I'm not doing that here. We're beyond that. But I saw some of you starting to make faces, so that's what I was to do. That's what I did in my last 2 ministries. And so it got to that point, and I was very clear, and everything came together to line that up. And so as soon as I was working those last few weeks, I started looking for the next Unity Church, and I clearly heard no. And what I kept seeing was just sit. It's expensive to live on Maui, God, in case you didn't notice. I don't want to have to spend my savings. Like, seriously, what I kept hearing was sit. And I thought, okay, so it's a little while. So I sit, and I'm completely done there, and now I've turned it over. I'm ready to leave. Sit. Stay. Sit. That kind of feeling. And so I sit, and what I'm hearing is focus on what you have to work with. Magnify what you have to work with. And in meditation one morning, I saw the word sit as spirit in touch. And I just had this understanding of what I would do. And so I went and I registered that name, and I got business cards made for Spirit in Touch. And I said, I do spiritual counseling and spiritual coaching. Nobody else on the island knew it, but that's what I had. I was ready to do that. Right after I got the business cards created, I got a call from Oahu, Unity of Diamond Head. They were hosting 2 weeks of classes for the Unity has a Pacific Rim seminary there. One of their teachers canceled, and they said, I wanted to reach out to see if you would come teach a couple of weeks and speak at the church. We've got a hotel room, oceanfront, Waikiki. Do you think you could do it? Let me check my calendar. Yeah, I'm pretty open. I could do that. So I fly over from Maui to Oahu, and I had a great time teaching a couple of classes and speaking at the big church there. Passed out a lot of cards, not that I was trying to, but people would ask. And anytime they'd ask, I'd be like, yes, I do have a card. So when I got back, interestingly, my phone started ringing. And guess what? I started having work. Now, it was kind of trickling in, and so I'm sitting, I'm understanding this is Spirit in Touch. What began to happen is people were calling me for counseling. I even had some of the kahunas on the island and different people call. And I never met them face to face, very rarely. I was usually on the phone. And as I would sit, when they'd call, we'd have a prayer, and then I'd say, how can I support you? And I'd close my eyes, and I had started seeing energy. And so as the first person started talking about their challenges, I started to see this giant mountain get created. The more they talked about their problem, this big old mountain was being magnified. And I knew that I needed to help them switch their focus to their spirit. They needed to get in touch with their spiritual nature. And so as we began to pray and talk about that, I could see energetically something begin to happen. All of a sudden, the mountain began to get smaller, and their energy began to get bigger. And then the next call would come in, completely different scenario, but how can I support you? Yada, 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 yada. There's their mountain. And then as we begin to shift, the mountain would go down, and their spirit would get so big. It happened time after time after time. And most people by the end could leave, and the mountain now was small and they were big. And what spoke to me is I really got what Jesus said when he said, "Ye shall speak to this mountain, be ye removed, and it shall be removed." He wasn't talking about magic. He was talking about magnification. He was talking about if you can magnify the truth of your being, if you can focus on this infinite spirit that knows no limitation, there is nowhere where God is not. There is no scenario that has no answer or no next step. Can you shift? And so I was beginning to see this, and things in me were opening up, and the money was trickling in, and I was living off savings, and I'm like, okay, God, we're getting this. Yes, let's go. And so then one day I got a call from a person that I had met who's an author and a speaker, and they said, could we have lunch? And I said, yes, I'd be happy to have lunch with you. So we had lunch, and in the course of the conversation, they were talking about something, and I offered some suggestions, and by the end of the conversation, they said, that was very helpful. Would you be willing to do so-and-so and help me? And I was just honored to be working with the person. I said, absolutely. And they said, we could do this, this, and this. Could you do that? And I'm thinking the whole while, yeah, I'll gladly volunteer to do that. And so we agreed on what I would help them do. And then he pulled out his wallet and took out a check. And he said, now I want to pay you for your services. And so he started writing, and he handed me a check, and he said, because I sure don't expect you to do this for nothing, and this is what I'm going to give you. And he handed that to me, and we went on our ways. And I got in my car, and I opened up a check for $10,000. I said, Lord, I will sit on Maui as long as you want me to sit here. But it was soon, right after that, I did the work and kept on, but after that, I got it. I got that you have to, I've seen it, I've done it, I've touched it, it's touched me. So often throughout our day, that's why Jesus said, shake the dust off. He's saying, shake those mountainous particles off of you. If you don't get them off of you, they're going to be a mountain before long. If you don't get yourself back in perspective, if you can't shift that focus. And so what Mary is inviting us to see is, where have we got stuck in the story? Where are we focusing on the littleness of our story versus the truth of our spirit? Soon after that happened, I got something came across my desk, and it was the church outside of Seattle, and my spirit said, yes, that's where you're going next. And that's how my spirit works. Now, some of you may say, wow, that's easy. I wish mine worked like that. Let me tell you, it is not easy. It's not easy when you really don't know how it's going to happen. But it gets much more doable when you take that first step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And so where in your life are you being asked, what do I need to stop magnifying? Where do I need to shift, and what do I need to magnify? So right at the same time in Maui, I had extra time. One of the first times in my life I'd had some time. And what a beautiful place to have some time on your hands. I started teaching myself to play the guitar. And it was during this song that this first little song came through me, which I have called Mary's Song, that I am here to reveal the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. That's the meaning of life. That's the gift of life. And that's the Mary spirit within you knows that and has equipped you with everything you need to do it. Would you join me in that one time? I am here to reveal the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. As you close your eyes, bring your awareness to your breath. Bring your awareness to your breath in such a way as you would if you were sitting on the beach watching the waves come in. Everyone is unique. You begin to sit and watch your breath come and go. As you sit and you make time and space to do this, you become more intimate and more familiar with the part of you that is called the observer, the witness, the one that can focus your attention, the one that can sit and watch the breath, the one that can notice that your mind has now drifted off to where you're going to have lunch, and the part of you that can say, no, come back. This capacity within our being to direct our awareness is where it all begins. For this part within us that can direct our awareness is itself pure awareness. And as we begin to notice where our attention is and notice what we're focusing on, notice what we're magnifying, notice what feels like a mountain in our life, part of us that can notice is also a doorway to what we could call another dimension of being. It's a doorway to infinite potentiality, Christ consciousness, the Atman, Buddha mind. It's through this doorway of awareness that we open to higher ideas and ideals. It's through this doorway of awareness that we can shift our focus and magnify the truth of our being. That I am a spiritual being. I am here to reveal the divine. That I have access to more potential than I can even imagine. And so I give my consent to embodying whatever is needed in my life. The good, the God that I'm seeking to bring forth in this relationship, in this situation. And I take action by focusing on what I do have to work with. And I open and I begin to do what I can do. I begin to claim what I do believe is true. And I realize that as I do this, that the Spirit is growing me, that I'm being stretched, that I'm birthing new ways of being in relationship with myself, new ways of being in relationship with others, new ways of being in relationship with anxiety, with illness, with any idea of lack. I'm transforming my capacity to be in relationship with all things because I now hold and magnify the picture of wholeness. Where in your life are you being nudged to magnify something different? What value, what spiritual truth are you ready to magnify? And as we hold this for ourselves, we hold in our awareness those who have asked us for prayer. We hold situations and individuals. We magnify the truth of their being and the truth of what is possible in every situation. If there's a name or a word that you want to speak into this sacred space, do so now that we hold the truth for them. I invite you to speak your own name. We magnify the truth of our being, the potentiality of our being, the consent of our being, and that which we have to work with. And we are here, revealing the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. Bring someone to mind that you have a difficult time seeing the divine in them. You know it's there, but you have a difficult time seeing it. You are here to reveal the divine. Sing it to them. You are here to reveal the divine. Now I'm going to invite you to stand. And let's claim it together as the collective we. We are here to reveal the divine. 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 Make it personal again. I am here to reveal the divine. I am here to reveal the divine. Yeah. Would you turn to one person and remind them, I'm glad you're here, but this is for me. Glad you're here, but this is for me.
Thank you, and you may be seated. Thank you, Reverend Darlene, for week after week after week, just calling us to open up and dive deeper and shine that light brighter and be who we came here to be. You are a blessing to this community, and I'm glad you're staying. I'm glad that level of work has shifted for you, because we get the blessing of that. Now is the time in our service where we prepare for our tithes and offerings. And as we prepare, I invite you to take a look around and just know that you are part of a greater spiritual community, and each of us brings our own unique gifts, money, time, service. In so many ways, we serve this community, and that service enables us to send a message out into the world that touches and blesses the lives of many. So in that consciousness of unity, let us repeat this affirmation together. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Oh, I know you're fed up, but life don't get up for us. All they talk about is what's going down, what's been messing up for us. When I look around, I see blue skies, I see butterflies for us. Listen to the sound and lose it, the sweet music, and dance with me. Oh, 'cause there's beauty in the world, so much beauty in the world, always beauty in the world, so much beauty in the world. Bring your beauty, boys and girls, there is beauty in the world. Pick your diamond, pick your pearl, there is beauty in the world. All together now. Always need more loving, we need more money. They say change is gonna come like the weather, like the forever. They say, well, baby, in between, notice the blue skies, notice the butterflies, and notice me. Stop and smell the flowers and lose it in sweet music and dance with me. Oh, because there's beauty in the world, so much beauty in the world. There is beauty in the world, so much beauty in the world. There is beauty, boys and girls. There is beauty in the world. Take your flowers, pick your pearls. There is beauty in the world, 'cause there's beauty in the world, so much beauty in the world. There is beauty in the world. There's beauty in the world. There's beauty in the world. So beauty in the world. Pick your flower, pick your pearl. There is beauty in the world.
There's beauty on this stage. Thank you, band, and Cat Williams. I invite our ushers to come forward. And along with our ushers, bearing our gifts for this community is Tom, one of our prayer chaplains. And prayer is such a foundational part of unity, and these prayer chaplains are available following today's service. If you go out this door and go through the multipurpose room, they're available to support you in the birthing, if you will, of your dreams. And also is Reverend Elan. Again, she represents sacred service, which is a powerful aspect of what holds community together so that we may shine our light. Tom, we want to bless him.
In gratitude, we bless the resources that flow through our lives and through our Unity Center, the gift of prayer and our sacred connection, and our capacity to serve and make a difference with our lives. And together we declare, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God enables us, the presence of God abides with us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Thank you. Let us stand and close with the peace song.
We need more